Hello and welcome to another episode of The Trading Desk. My name is Joshua Thanos, and sitting to the right of me is my best friend, my buddy, my life partner, Jason Mane.
What's going on, guys? How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good.
Good to see you.
Back.
Oh, sorry, sanitary fist
Oh,
bump.
2021.
Right. It is 2021.
What's going on, guys? How are you? We missed you. Hopefully you recognize that we were missing. A couple customers noticed and sent out some search parties, so appreciate you noticing we're not dead.
Yeah,
We're back.
we're live. We're here. We're live in Philadelphia. It is snowing outside. I picked the best week of the year to come up to Philadelphia. I think it's 75 degrees back home in Florida, and it's far less here in Philly.
Yeah, a little cold.
Yeah, man. So we're back. This is a special episode of The Trading Desk. We haven't done an episode since it was like January 2020. And the world is very different now than it was then. And our world is very different. The watch world is very different. So let's talk about it. But before we talk about that, let's start with our customary wrist check. Jay, what are you rocking?
Wrist checks.
Yeah.
I liberated this from my watch box. I actually, believe it or not, have not worn this watch for about a year.
Really?
Yeah, I think
Time to sell.
So this is the 114060 now, discontinue. So that's super cool. Non-date, obviously ceramic sub. This one is a 2014. It's definitely been worn. It's gotten some love, but you know I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a great piece, and I've been wearing it for the last 3 days or so. But I would say my Polar 42 millimeter has been getting a lot of wrist time, as well as my Fenissimo. But we'll get into our watches a little bit later. But yeah, ceramic non-date sub, staple of the collection. Very good watch.
Cool.
What about you? What are you wearing?
Well, I'm setting my watch right now because I feel embarrassed that it wasn't set. I took this thing off the wrist for a couple days.
Well, you were wearing the 233 when I walked in.
That's right.
And you switched switched it up a little bit.
I have been switching. So what's on the wrist today for today's show, and as I'm up from my home in Florida, I did bring a few of my watches here that we'll chat about in a minute. But what I have on the wrist today is, it's not my newest acquisition, but it's my favorite new watch, and that's a Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore 42 millimeter in full titanium bracelet. It's a 26170 Ti. Again, full titanium bracelet. It's a 2014. There you go.
Hey,
monochromatic dial, like a grayish tint to the titanium, grayish tint to the dial. Little red accents. I love this watch. I love it more than I thought I would. I got the watch. It was offered to me at a decent price, so I said, all right, well, what do I have to lose? I got the watch, and I actually liked it more than I thought I would. The weight is amazing. I think that this is the best 42 offshore that exists. For some reason, I had like a false memory of a ceramic pusher version of this watch. I feel like when we were back in Florida, I held that watch in my hands. Turns out I didn't, because it doesn't exist. And that would be the only thing. If they did make a new version of this watch with ceramic pushers and the open case back, I might trade this for that. But I really love this watch. I think it's fantastic. It's everything I'd want in like a high-end watch. I guess it's the most expensive watch that I own now. And I've really been enjoying wearing it.
It's a cool piece because the 42 wears a little bit larger in the offshore case. Mm-hmm. So now when you supplement it with the titanium, you know, it just makes it that much more wearable.
It feels more like a Panerai on the wrist, and it's weird. I actually did a podcast with Tim yesterday, Tim Masso, and we were talking about how this watch wears. And the 41 Royal Oak in steel, the way that it sits on the wrist, it's almost a little bit wider, like it's like a bigger disc, and it's a little less comfortable, and it's a little heavier. So the fact that this one is in full titanium, I think it just makes it a perfect watch. And at this point, I don't see a scenario where I would be selling this watch. I tend to make plans, like as soon as I get a watch, I'm like, all right, that's one that won't sit in the collection.
It's got a 6-month deadline, and then you pull the ripcord.
Yeah, since about 2019, I've been kind of buying and trading and building my collection at kind of a fever pace, and I have like too many Panerais. I don't have any Rolex in my collection right now, and I probably do want to get one of those, so maybe I'll trade some things. But yeah, so on the wrist today, AP. Rolex.
And I know you put that on a strap for a little bit, and then it just didn't stick. You went
No,
back to the bracelet.
I have the diver, the black rubber diver strap with the big the big stainless steel buckle, and it does feel just as good on that as well. But when I'm up here in Philly, and I just kind of wanted a little bit of a nicer watch, I guess, because it does feel it takes it to the next level having the bracelet.
It's like the Fenissimo. I put it on that blue strap, and it's cool, but the bracelet makes that watch for me.
Without a doubt. Yeah, I agree with you on that one. But yeah, so well, I guess that leads us into the next thing. So normally we just do the wrist check and then we talk about what's happening this week. But since this may be the only show we do for months live like this, why don't we talk about our collections? I know I just kind of mentioned my collection has been kind of going bonkers. Have you, in 2020, because it's kind of the year in review since we haven't really done a show since January, did you add anything new to your collection? I don't know. I don't think so.
I bought nothing that's stuck. I bought a Seiko that didn't stick. I bought an Omega Speedmaster that didn't stick. Nothing that really stayed around, honestly. And that's fine. Sometimes you buy 5, 6 watches a year. Sometimes you buy none.
Yeah. Well, you bought a house and had a kid, so that might have had something to do with it.
A lot of other changes going on. A lot of new knives, I will say. So other hobbies have kind of taken over. But ebbs and flows. I still love my watches. They still get worn.
So what do you have then? So
I have a handful of things that you guys don't know about that are nothing special, like Seikos and stuff like that.
Like a Unimatic or something, right?
Yeah. I have, let's say, 10 sub $500 watches that you guys aren't going to care about.
Only 10?
I have the Fenissimo, 1 of 200 with the blue markers.
Oh, yeah.
On the bracelet and with the rubber leather alligator strap with the titanium buckle.
So Bulgari off the Fenissimo.
Correct. I have this sub non-date. I have the 42 Explorer
Polar.
I have my Breitling Anti-Digi Evo 3 Night Mission.
Kind of rounds it out, right?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah,
I had the 510, which I loved, and I need to actually get a new Panerai.
Yeah.
So that's next on the hit list. I've been kind of
plenty.
searching the interwebs. But that's going to be the next, because I traded that to get the Fenissimo, because it just made a lot of sense. I got out of the Panerai for exactly what I had into it. So
nice.
But I do need to get a new Panerai. I'm eyeing up that 177.
It's a nice watch. That's the newest Panerai in the collection. I'm really gravitating towards titanium watches, obviously with this the AP. So the newest piece in the collection is a Panerai 177. Let's see what.
It's a cool piece.
I forgot what. I think it's an O serial. No, H. So I think it's 2008. So watch is about 12 years old. So we can get a close-up shot. Yeah, you can see it has sandwich dial, sub-seconds. It's the modified ETA movement.
It's a clean example.
Yeah, it's a good watch. It's in good shape, and I like it a lot. So it's going to actually compete with my 233, which is my most favorite purchase so far in my watch collecting journey. The PAM 233, I think, is the best one Panerai watch collection that you could have, right? So if you're only going to buy one Panerai, I think this watch kind of hits every note, right? So it's 8-day movement, manual wind, so it's a little bit thinner on the wrist, because I like watches that look a little bit big on the wrist, that look like nice and robust, but don't feel huge and don't rock back and forth. So like this 44 actually it wears slim enough on the wrist where it's not going to be an oversized watch. It doesn't move on the wrist when I strap it down, and it has the AM PM indicator. It's a GMT with the date function. Again, 8-day movement. So I set this down for a couple days, wear the AP or wear a Cartier or wear something else in my collection to pick it back up, and it's still running, and I just wind it. You can see the movement, P2002 movement, very nice, nicely finished watch. I mean, it's nothing high horology, but it's really nice. So this is my favorite watch in my collection. I guess second now to the AP. Yeah, looks good on you, bud. Yeah, you need a Panerai in your collection. So I do. I have that. I have my 380. I have my 002. My hashtag 2A. Yeah.
Your PAM. Restoration piece.
My restoration piece, and I think I have. I also have a PAM 1312. It doesn't get really worn. That was my attempt to buy an automatic. I just don't really love it.
The
way it fits.
Yeah,
it's a little thinner than the 312, which is nice, but it's still. I prefer when I go to the watch box, the 233s get picked.
I like the 312. I think a little bit better than the 1312, but I can see that. I mean, the 233 is a great watch.
So I also have my Cartier Santos, I bought this before it was cool to buy this watch. I think I paid $4,000 now. They're online selling for like 75 to 8. It's wild. I don't think I'll ever sell it. I beat the hell out of it. But it's the closest thing I have to a dress watch. And in Florida, in South Florida where I live, like we're not wearing suits. So, but if I go out to a nice dinner or something and I don't want to wear the AP or a Panerai, the Cartier wins. So I think this one will stay in the collection. I have a bunch of other crap, like I say crap, but like vintage Hoyer Octavias.
Yeah.
I had Speedmaster, Seamaster, things that like kind of lower end stuff that wouldn't really be worth selling, though. Both the Seamaster and Speedmaster have gone up in value in 2020.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. So that's kind of a rundown on what we did personally in terms of collecting. Seems like Jason's on a holding pattern. I'm always moving things. Yeah, there you go. Okay, I'll just send you a bill. But all right, so let's jump into it. So 2020 was a wild year for watches. It was a wild year for the world, right? But the watch community really, things changed. So actually, our last episode was in January. I was up here in March, and I was supposed to be here the whole week. And the day that the NBA got shut down,
Yep.
I changed my flight to the next day and got the hell out of here. So I was worried about getting stuck in.
Was dropping you off at your Airbnb.
Yep.
And we got the tweet that the NBA was closing down, and he looked over at me. He's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna get stuck here."
Yep.
And I think the next morning you were on a flight. So. Mm-hmm. And then you were out of here. Yeah, lots of crazy things going on. Obviously, the world's changing. Human interaction is changing, right? The way we work with customers. Not a whole lot of red bar events going on.
No.
Or anything like that. But honestly, it's been. I don't know about you. I've never been busier.
Yeah. So that's what's kind of wild, right? So March, everything shuts down. We don't know what's going to happen. I fully expected our business to kind of almost die out, right? I didn't know. There was a lot of uncertainty. I had just had a child, March 31st.
Right.
I had my daughter. Jason had a daughter later in the year as well. I was actually kind of planning on taking some time off after the birth of my daughter, so I had a little bit of a plan to kind of slow things down anyways. And then March, April, and into June, March, April, into May, things did slow down a bit. People, I think a lot of the flippers, the guys who had been chasing the watches, thinking that they were going to sell and make money, they started liquidating all their watches. So we got a lot of offers for watches, so much so to the point where I want to say in May we stopped buying watches altogether. I think we only took them in trade.
We pumped the brakes pretty hard on most of the stuff, yeah.
We didn't know what was going to happen. So like most of the watch world, a lot of the watch prices came down, Rolex included, Patek, Journes even were sliding a bit. But then June came around and I think people realized it wasn't the end of the world, that we're all going to die from Corona, right? And that there was some steps that we could take in order to stay safe, and we were just going to have to work from home. At that point, things started picking up, actually, tremendously, to a huge surprise, right? So by September, we were doing better than the year before in terms of sales, our company, but really the industry in total. And it was wild. And then by December, I don't know about you, but December was the best sales month I had ever had.
I think November was my peak. December was good, but November for me was probably the best
I'm talking about
in recent memory.
The best sales month I've ever had, just point blank, right, in revenue, was December of 2020, which is wild. So that's kind of how we ended the year, and things kind of continued into 2021 now. And one thing that we've talked about a lot with a lot of our customers is like, why is the watch world doing so well? Why is it doing better when supposedly things have been shut down, the economy is in question, there's a lot of uncertainty? Why are people spending money on these watches? And I think I've come to a decent answer. Like I've developed an idea of why by talking to a lot of my customers. And I'd say, well, number one, most of our customers who can afford these types of watches, they were able to work from home. Either they're going to be in healthcare, so they're going to be busy anyways, or they were able to work from home, so they're going to be in finance, they might be in tech, some of those things, right? So not a lot of people in the service industry, which was affected more than anything. So those guys were working from home, and furthermore, so they were able to keep their income coming, sometimes increasing, especially in the tech sector. But furthermore than that, a lot of our customers have large travel budgets throughout the year, right? I know I do, right? At least a decent travel budget. So since that was wiped out, people are not traveling. They're not going out to dinner. They're not, going out and and enjoying themselves, bowling or movies or whatever it may be, all that money's basically being allocated towards other goods. And I mean, you know, it's going to be remodeling homes, I think is a huge thing that happened in 2020 and then going into 2021. And then buying luxury goods and watches have been benefited from it. So, you know, that's kind of the way I see it. We're talking to a lot of my customers. That's the explanation as to why things are bonkers now.
Yeah, so when we discuss kind of the loose premise of this question, it seems fitting because this is a conversation we have organically with our customer at almost every single phone call.
Yep.
It feels like this conversation's had, both new customers, repeats, catching up with the old guys. So, and then, you know, you and I, when we jump on the phone, this is an organic conversation. So it's nice to bring it to the trading desk, which is what we always try and do anyways.
Yeah.
I agree with you a little bit. I don't know so much about travel budget. I mean, I don't specifically have like, you know, a written amount that I travel a year and this is what I spend, but I understand guys that do it for work and professionally do.
Right.
So that's certainly a point. I think investing in infrastructure, like you said, with people putting money back in their homes, the real estate market, you know, had a huge boom from all the, you know, financial uncertainty and people refinancing their homes, great interest rates, so a lot of money coming back from that. But really what I'm seeing is with my customers these are guys that are not affected by the necessary dips in the market. If anything, the dips in the market are buying opportunities for a lot of guys. And I'm not talking guys that buy RMs, right? I'm talking about guys that buy 5 watches a year. These are guys that are buying stock when the stock drops. We have huge profits coming in from selling stocks, playing in a market where, you know, maybe necessarily they wouldn't jump in as heavy as they would unless there's volatility. But again, ebbs and flows in market only create opportunity. You have to have the money to be able to spend it. But a guy that's buying 5, 6 watches now all of a sudden can buy 5 or 6 that are twice the price, or perhaps, you know, if he's happy with that price point, just more pieces in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely, I would say this last year, been a little bit more squeeze for the same amount of juice, like more work for the same result.
The margins have been cut yet.
Right.
There's more dealers involved as well.
But it's also been like we're busy. I have not stopped moving this year, like so that's good. You know, it could be a lot worse, I would say. But overall,
it's a blessing.
The watch industry in itself, there's been some big news, which we're going to talk about now. Some watch stuff, some new releases, some stuff that's being, you know, discontinued. The industry is doing well. I think 2020 is only really going to set the pace for the next couple years in watch space. So no more big shows, no more budgets spent on big booths. A lot of the brands were already moving the way of like Instagram releases and stuff like that, social media releases.
Yeah.
I think that's only going to be the next, you know.
I think it's good too.
Yeah, it's a logical conclusion to that.
So more people have access to the information that kind of was guarded in the past. So that's another thing, right? So we've been talking about this for a few years. I'm sure if you go back, you're sick and tired of me talking about how social media has really changed the way that people buy watches and also expanded the market, right? So, you know, I started around 2012. You were, what year did you start in the watch industry? 2008 or so?
Yeah, something like 2007.
So before kind of social media became what it is now, right? So back then, and even when I started in the beginning, when like guys like Watch and Nish had like 100,000 followers, and now he's got a million, right?
Yeah.
Back then, you know, the watch world wasn't as friendly in terms of like bringing information, conveying information, and marketing their watches, right? It was all about exclusivity. So if you went to even a boutique, right, like it was a little stuffy and whatnot. So things have changed, especially 2020 has changed big times in terms of like formalities and all that. People
Right.
working from home in their pajamas.
Sure.
They're getting more comfortable with that. But even before this, social media allowed people from anywhere, right? So if you don't have a boutique, AP boutique in your town, but I can get on, I can learn about the new models on Instagram or on even Facebook or Reddit or one of these places. So, you know, the internet and social media has really expanded the market to make it easy, because in the past, like if I wanted to buy a nice watch and I had some money, I didn't know, how am I supposed to know the difference between an Invicta and a Panerai?
Right.
If I don't have a buddy to tell me, or somebody on YouTube now who you know, a guy like Tim who's going to tell you, how are you supposed to know where to spend your money, right? And there was a lot of those mistakes being made. Nowadays, it's much easier to find that info.
A lot less social interaction. There weren't big get-togethers between a bunch of watch guys.
Right.
There weren't. So you had your favorite stores that you would go to, try and find someone that you could trust that would tell you how it was, and not try and sell you the watch that they wanted to sell you. Lie to you about how this watch is going to appreciate in value because it's a limited edition and all that stuff. So yeah, it's definitely opened up the world that way, and it's made, I would say overall, it's made the collecting more fun. It's made a lot of people a lot more friends. The interaction is much better, and it's what we strive to do here with the videos and education.
Right.
Like I say all the time, I started with Tourneau in the first part of my career, and it was a blast. It was all about education. It was so much fun. It was, come in, take a look at this. This is how this works, and it then grew into like an elitist type of, we are the authority. We set the rules. We do this, and there's nothing. Not my cup of tea, let's just say. So I like the whole, educational aspect of it. I like taking the new guy from a Seiko to a Rolex, and not just because it's a Rolex, but because he's had 4 or 5 other watches and has figured out that like his collection has matured enough to where he can warrant the sub, and he knows what it is, and to him it's now special, where before, and I've said this before too, like I had a negative outlook too until I owned one and understood it. And I think it's fine to not like Rolex and be like, I hate Rolex for what they are. If you've owned one and you've experienced it and you've decided it's not for you, that's fine. It's like saying you don't like to eat certain foods if you've never tried them, right? So, but for me, evolving somebody's collection is the coolest part of my job.
Cool, nice, man. Well, answer a question I didn't ask, but it's good. It was a good little monologue there. So, but the point I was making was that the watch market, especially in 2020, in terms of the available buyers, is huge, right? It's bigger than it ever has been. If I had to make a guess, I'd say it's 3 times the size that it was, just a few years ago. So we're going to see this type of demand, I think, for a while. In the past, I thought that maybe we were in a bubble and that it was going to pop at any moment, but at this point, I don't believe that's the case anymore. So let's do this. We want to talk about some of the 2020 releases and some cool watches that we like and what the market is on those watches. But before we do that, there's some really cool, some good banter in the chat box. Some guys accusing us of being deep fakes because we haven't been on forever. And it is, we are deep fakes. I'm actually Brian Godberg, and this is Mike Mane and Josh, just deep faked. So.
Yeah, it's all green screen.
That's right. So let's answer some of these questions. So we had a few questions. Robert C. says, hey guys, thoughts on the new Datejust retaining or increasing in value? So I'll field this question because I've had one on order since September. So the Jubilee, the steel Jubilee Rolex Datejusts have just not been coming in, and they've slowly been sliding up in price. At this point, it looks like every steel Rolex is going to be trading at or above retail. I don't think we can name one that doesn't at this point, right?
Yeah, there's a difference between watches that trade at retail and watches that are flippable, right?
Sure.
So, you got taxes, stuff like a Datejust. To the end user, the person that's going to put it on their wrist, it's going to sell at retail or a tad above. But yeah, even 34 millimeter pieces, even smaller ladies OPs are getting, they're very hard to get still. All the new OPs, the 41s, good luck. It's been really, really tough. Obviously, I would love to pick up the green dial for myself, but they are way up there right now.
Well, those watches are trading for between $8,000 and $12,000 with a $5,800 retail. So it's pretty wild.
So it's a
secondary. He was talking about the Datejust though, so let's stay on topic.
So secondary market aside, for the Datejust, it's a cool watch. You're going to pay retail or a little bit above if you get it on the secondary market.
Depending on the dial.
Depending on the configuration. For me, I would say, did he say whether it's a smooth bezel or a fluted bezel?
He just said thoughts on the new Datejust.
If you're indifferent, I think the fluted bezel is a stronger player.
Yeah.
That's the one I'd probably try and stretch for.
Mass appeal on
if
that,
you can get it. Just mass appeal. It looks, in my opinion, with the Jubilee, you go fluted, and if you're going to go oyster, then the smooth looks good.
Right. Any dial color, really. The blue is going to be the hottest.
Yeah, the smooth bezel with the Jubilee looks good, but the smooth bezel with the oyster, the smooth bezel with Jubilee looks a little lacking, in my opinion.
Sure.
So.
I understand that. All right, cool. And let's see here. All right, so Abdul Watches makes a good point. He goes, I think that also people are looking at watches and luxury goods as a hedge against inflation in many countries, at least. And so I've been talking about this as well. So I'm not a financial advisor in any way. I'm just one of these morons out here. And
I can attest.
But I've talked to guys who who know these things, and they said to guard against inflation, buy assets, right? So I'm buying properties and other assets, but watches as well. A lot of guys are looking at it saying, especially Rolex watches, if things go bonkers and inflation kicks in and starts really hurting the dollar, everything you buy is obviously going to go up in value as the dollar goes down. So watches are one of the things that are easily tradable. So maybe people are looking at these as a hedge. I don't know if I'd advise that, because again, I don't really advise people on this on that type of stuff anyways. But it could be one of the reasons why people are looking to buy more watches right now. All right, Frederick Drost is asking when we're opening up a Watchbox office in Europe, and I would say a couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we opened one in Switzerland. So check it out. All right, let's see. Next question. Thomas Burnett says, okay, he's asking about Panerai. He goes, what do you guys think about the future of Panerai? Are they going to keep making watches from different materials for high prices or lower price watches? So if I was in charge of Panerai, I would make very few watches out of wild materials, and try to stick more to the core pieces, and just stick to kind of what got them to the dance, which is industrial design, good-looking watches. I think it was a great idea to slim down the cases a little bit to make them more wearable. It's one of the reasons why I stick to manual wind Panerais, but even the new automatics are a little slimmer than the previous generation of these Panerais. It doesn't look like they're going to make any changes. I talk about it sometimes. The Bronzo was a kind of a gift and a curse, right? So the success of the Bronzo, I think, taught Panerai that we can make watches out of strange materials and people will buy them. But I think the Bronzo is kind of a one-off. They make ceramic watches, which are okay, and those do sell. Those are a little bit more reasonable. But then they make like recycled titanium, or they make forged carbon. Forged carbon divers never really made any sense to me. I mean, they're good-looking watches, but if I want to get a forged carbon watch, maybe I'll look at an AP instead, because I think they do forged carbon a little bit better. And then they have all these new wild materials and 70-year warranties, which might as well be a million-year warranty.
3D printed titanium.
Right.
I think it would be smart. I like the idea of the 70-year piece as a prototype and as a proof of concept with those materials. And I think that would be, kind of to your point, I think it would be smart for them to build a handful of proof of concept watches. Sure. And then what ideally you would hope is that concept gets pulled down into a lighter production version. So maybe like a 3D printed bezel on a production watch. But because the concept was there and the research and development, the production then becomes cheaper. Yeah. So if there's a $70,000 watch, I'd like to see a $7,500 version of something that has a component of the proof of concept. Makes sense. But yeah, I think if I had my perfect wish, we get some, we keep getting 44 millimeter Luminor cases, we get some greens, we get some maybe sand colors in the dials, which we are getting some grays and sands, cool. I think, you stick with maybe we come out with a new, something past an 8-day manual movement. Would be cool. 10-day, something like that. Useful complications. Yeah, useful complications, something that still...
Split-second chronos,
Still keeping our rugged nature. I probably lose the quick pins in some of the cases. Not my favorite. I like the screw down pins, but that's just me being
I go back and forth.
And I really go hardcore in the whole new straps concept. Yeah. I would rather see research and development and produce some weird straps than weird watches.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think so. One thing that I think Panerai is missing right now is as they try to go up market with weird watches they move away from steel. And maybe the thinking is, and we don't know because we're not in those meetings and we're not part of Panerai, but maybe they're thinking, oh well, the steel sport watch segment is dominated by Rolex and Patek or even Omega, but I think that these are great alternatives to those watches, and I think if they focused on sub 10,000 steel sport watches, maybe include multiple straps like you're saying. and really focused on like those core pieces, I think that they would do better now, as opposed to kind of like, you know, they're working on experiential selling. So they make like a watch with like, you know, Mike Horn, and then you buy the watch for $40,000. It's really maybe only a $15,000 watch, but then you get an exclusive trip with Mike Horn, which is cool, and maybe it does well for, you know, spreading the word. You know, it's good for press, but in terms of the actual watches themselves, it's, you know, that has nothing to do with the watch really. So if you know, instead of what they did with some of the really lower end pieces, they moved down market and then used like press case backs, like lowered the water resistancy, which doesn't make any sense. Like you are industrial design dive watches, right? Just embrace the hell out of that. And I think they would do better, because if I go to the AD thinking that I'm going to buy a Rolex Submariner and find out that there's no chance of me buying a Rolex Submariner at list, and I got to pay $14,000 for that watch, and I look and see like a Panerai 233, which has a $12,000 retail, and maybe I can buy it at a slight discount and buy that watch for 10 grand. You know, now I feel like, okay, there's a huge value here. Plus, I like the watch, and you know, it's a little bit of a statement watch too. I think that's one of the things that people like about Panerai, is that it's, you know, I'm not buying a blingy gold watch, but I still get a bit of a statement watch, because you get the big crown guard, which is very functional as well, but it's comfortable on the wrist, and you have different straps so you can swap it up. So like that is a great first watch for anybody. And they don't really focus on that market, I feel like. You know, like the 5 to 10, as opposed to they try to go down market and to get into like a $4,000 range, like to compete with like Omega and Tudor, or sorry, Omega and like Tag Heuer. Mm-hmm. But there's that gap, that $5,000 to $10,000 gap, and I feel like Panerai could fill
that
it.
7,500 hole really is like where you hit your hard market. I personally would love to see, and I think the one thing, or there's quite a few things that I would love to see, but something like a Core 44 submersible doesn't exist right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's the watch.
PAM 24 still be made.
Well, 1024 now, right?
Oh yeah, 1024, yeah.
But like a Core, I mean, that's a cool watch, but like $7,500, let's bring up the materials a little bit, and like a Core, hardcore 44 millimeter.
Yeah, do some more of those, yeah, as opposed to just adding like strange, you know, materials, or like making tourbillons. Like, listen, guys, it's a great watch. You made an awesome movement tourbillon, but I mean, who needs a diving tourbillon?
Why don't we take the 305 and the 389 and bring that into a 44 millimeter? Let's get a sub with the black bezel, like a 389 would be awesome. In a 44.
Well, they make a 42 and they skip the 44s.
44.
Yeah, I agree with you. So let's see, our buddy Wolfgang Kohler. Him and I are on the same page, man. You know, he loves his Panerais, and he said that's why it's so painful, and I'm in the same boat. Regardless of how the company handles their, you know, their marketing and distribution, I love the watches, and I think I always will. You know, I was wearing this PAM 233 that I've had for 2 years now the other night, and I was just looking at it thinking, man, I love this watch.
It's a pretty watch.
Yeah, and then Wolfgang also said any Panerai over 10 grand is a problem. Yeah, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, I would not, you know, recommend buying a Panerai over 10,000 unless it's like a 317. You could probably pay a little bit over 10, and it's a good watch, and then there's a value there. Some of the gold pieces are cool, but you know, there are watches that are just strange complications that are weirdly expensive for no reason. So we went on a Panerai rant. I could literally do an entire episode.
Yeah. Well,
it hurts my heart. I love Panerai.
We both love the brand, and it's something that we've been, you know, so steeped in for a long time. So it's easy. But
yeah. All right, so the last question that we're going to handle before talking about some new releases is Design Atier, I don't know how to pronounce that in French, says, has Bitcoin affected the watch market? So funny story, what was it? It was when did Bitcoin surge the first time? It was 2017, right?
Yeah.
So at that time, I was actually mining Bitcoin in my apartment. But when Bitcoin went to $20,000, we actually had a lot of guys who had made huge profits at that time, were buying watches. And I think that I do have customers. The stock market and Bitcoin right now being up so much, I think Bitcoin's at $52,000 currently. Yeah. You know, I believe it'll hit 100 grand this year, but again, I base that on just, I don't know, the wind. Yeah, we are seeing some guys who are cashing out and buying watches, but I don't think it's affecting the market as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's moving the needle. Maybe one or two guys here and there. I don't know anybody, myself included, that has any Bitcoin that's necessarily looking to get out right now.
Yeah.
But
so I have a question for you guys, and answer it in the chat box. if as things open up, so I live in Florida, it's basically back to normal. You just wear a mask indoors. Philadelphia, not so much. They're slowly opening up. But as things open up, are you guys going to be looking to spend less on watches? Are you going to be looking to sell your watches that maybe you bought during 2020? Have you thought about that kind of stuff? Give me the answer in the chat box because I'd like to see kind of what people are thinking about. All right, so next I want to talk about some cool releases in 2020. So it's 2021 right now. There have been some recent releases too, but we want to talk more about 2020 since we really haven't.
We skipped 2020.
Yeah, we skipped it
on the trading desk.
That's true. Exactly. So so there's quite a few new releases from a bunch of different brands. You want to start with Omega?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Jay. So
it's probably one of the more exciting.
So let's talk about the new Snoopy. There you go. So the new Snoopy came out in 2020. We know about the silver Snoopy, the second, or was that the second or third? The silver?
That was the second.
Okay. So that watch, for whatever reason, went insane. And now trades for like $40,000. So they released another Speedy. The other one was the silver? Is this the blue Snoopy? What do you call
this?
this?
So I would say the blue.
Okay, blue Snoopy.
So the major kind of Snoopy in the room, if you will, is the last piece was a true limited edition,
right.
Numbered, sold out, impossible, skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Cool looking watch.
Mm-hmm.
I personally like the look of this piece better. I think it's a little bit higher end piece, both in aesthetic and actual production of the watch. With the markers are beautiful, applied markers. Obviously, the dial on the Snoopies are always cool. Did you pull a case back shot for this watch?
I don't have a case back shot, unfortunately.
Okay, that's unfortunate. One of the coolest parts of this watch, if you're watching this show, you got to know what the back of this watch looks like already, right? But sure. One of the coolest parts of this watch is when you start the chronograph, you got the little rocket that goes across the back of the case, flying through the sky, which seems like a simple step in manufacturing, but is genius. And I don't know how complex that could possibly be. It's just linked to the gear train, but it's awesome. Nice. And it basically, it's fun. It kind of takes this fun watch that's, by the way, like $9,600 retail and impossible to get right now. Mm-hmm. And I think we've seen
online
some
trading in the 30s.
I've seen some confirmed $30,000 transactions. They're asking like 35, 38. It's nuts. Oof. So I will say, if you want this watch, you can still get a we'll put you on the list, and then maybe you'll get a phone call. I don't know. They're not numbered. They are what I've been told is limited production, which means they'll make as many as they want to make until they don't want to make anymore, and then they'll stop. But it's beautiful looking. I would definitely. I don't say this often, but it's a watch I would own at retail.
Yeah.
And
$9,600.
secondary aside, you got to remember, like for us, it's a little bit different in terms of what we buy and sell stuff for, because we're dipped into the market.
Well, we know we don't have to do any research. It's something we do on a daily basis to know what things are worth.
I would own that watch at retail, and I would wear it.
$9,600 Speedmaster. Interesting.
It's a cool watch.
It is cool. Not water resistant, so what am I going to do? I have a Speedmaster.
It's a space watch.
When was the last time you
There's no water up there.
Really? When was the last time you went to space?
Yesterday.
I'm sure you did. Yeah, magic mushroom trip. There you go. Hey, so a $30,000 Speedmaster that's not limited was released in 2020. They also released a new old movement,
Not the one people wanted.
So the Omega Speedmaster that had been around forever, the 42 millimeter, got an upgrade. Now it has a 3-2-1 movement. Why don't you tell us about that, Jason?
So essentially, no, these do not have the 321.
The one on the right should be the 321, I believe.
So the 321 came out in the Ed White, but the new production Speedmasters do not have the 321. They have a reiteration of also another old Omega movement. Mm-hmm. But they do have a lot heavier finishing work on the case, the dial, and applied markers, refined lugs. The bracelet's a little bit better.
Well, they have 3 different options for the bracelet now, right?
Yeah, there's some options. The actual fit and finish is really nice. The only thing that I've seen that a lot of people are kind of swing and a miss at on this particular release is they didn't fix the whole buckle adjustment that the Speedmaster fans have been crying for. People that absolutely love the watch and are apologetic for other things about the watch still say, I wish I would have had that buckle. And I agree with you. I think in today's day and age, especially now with like global warming and the fluctuation of weather everywhere, like ask Texas, it's definitely welcomed. The price on these guys, though,
it's way up, isn't it? Like 10 grand?
Yeah, they're. I don't know honestly that this was enough for me, a leap forward in between like the 005 Hesselite and the 006 Sapphire Sandwich previous to justify the price increase. But, it's a Speedmaster. People are going to buy them. They're going to walk into the boutique, fall in love with it, put it on their wrist. I personally, if you're looking for a Speedmaster, or you were, I would hunt down a 006, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got the 005.
That's right.
And I wear it once a week or so. I love the watch when it's on the wrist, but then I think about jumping in the pool or, I can't really do that. The watch has a Hesselite crystal, so it's going to get scratched. So I always end up grabbing a dive watch. But I don't think I'll ever sell the watch because I like having it in the collection, and I'll wear it for a day or so at a time.
I've had 4 or 5 over the last 15 years, and they just never seem to stick around. We've talked about that before.
But maybe a silver Snoopy will for you, or the blue Snoopy. The Bloopy? All right, so those were Omega's releases. Omega's doing very well. Even the 40.5 millimeter Seamasters, the pre-current ceramic Seamasters have gone up in price.
Yep.
I mean, I think I paid $1,000 or $1,500 for mine. I think now it's worth like wholesale $2,500, maybe even $3,000, which is exciting. Speedmasters also. So the previous version Speedmasters have gone up. I want to say I paid like around $200 or $2,500 for that watch. Now it's worth more. So for me, I'm happy about that, I guess. So Omega's doing well, and I think it's an all boats rise kind of scenario with a lot of these watches.
I think so. Those 2 specific pieces, though, are also getting some help from discontinuation and stuff like that.
That's true. All right, what do you want to talk about next? You want to talk about Rolex?
Sure.
So we kind of already touched on the OPs. Let's pull the OPs up again. So when the OPs were announced, the green dials were the ones that people were attacking us for. They were sending in multiple inquiries. I want to get this watch. I want to get this watch. And those prices, like people were posting, like stock photos of it, thinking that they were going to get it for like absurd money, like 20 grand. It turns out the real desirable one is a Tiffany. The Tiffany is the one that's selling for the most. I in person, I like that the best as well. And that's the one that's really kind of skyrocketing, but all these watches are selling over list.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a green guy, and that's my particular almost favorite shade of green, the OD green.
Sure.
And I will own that watch at some point once it comes back down a little bit. Whether it'll stick or not, I'm not sure, because at the end of the day, it's when you have the Sub and you have an Explorer 2 and then you go back to an OP, I don't know. I actually had OP39 for about 6 months, the gray dial with the baby blue markers.
Sure.
And it was cool, but again, I had the 2 other watches and it just never, I'm not putting that on. Right. I don't know,
it's a little dressy.
Yeah, so we'll see. I like the green. I'll try it out. I don't know if it'll stick.
I think I like, so the green's nice. I mean, they're all really nice. I actually kind of like the yellow and as well as the Tiffany blue. I'd wear either of those. The coral's cool. They're all cool. I know guys who bought the entire set, which is interesting. And I mean, they're going to be collectible. I don't know how long Rolex is going to keep those around for. I can't see those being sold for 10 years though.
They're cool though. Yeah. I could see maybe the next wave being 5 different colors.
Sure. Absolutely. But the real news from Rolex is the Submariners. So here we have 3 examples of the new Submariners. So the Sub had a huge change in 2020. They changed the reference, they changed the movement, they changed the case, and they changed some of the color configurations, right?
Yeah.
So we have a new Kermit, black dial, green bezel, highly desirable. I think it's more handsome than the Hulk, in my opinion, which
I would agree.
We can talk about what happened to the Hulk and what's happening now with the Hulk again. I owned one of these for a short period of time. Just couldn't get enough wrist time for me to justify keeping it, especially with the prices going bonkers. But I do like it better than the 40. It's a little less chunky, especially for my wrist. The bracelet feels it's a little bit wider at the case, and it feels fantastic. I believe the clasp is wider as well. So I just had the all black variant. I haven't owned the Kermit yet. It's a nice watch. I don't know if I'll ever own it, but I think this was a home run for the brand. It makes the watch even have a larger mass appeal, and you'll see now. I mean, the Kermits are trading. They've been going between like the high teens and the low 20s. The yellow golds are over list. The white golds are way over list. Yeah. We haven't really seen many of those delivered, so there's not many trading.
They killed my Smurf.
Yeah, that's right.
I've been wanting a Smurf for a long time. Now they killed it. Now I can't get one because they're going nuts.
Oh yeah.
Smurfs are.
Is it $45,000 watch?
Yeah,
Is it more?
Smurfs
50?
are. Last time I checked, just over 40. It could be up now, but I've wanted a Smurf for a long time. The new one does look nice, but I think I like the blue on blue better than the blue on black. Although I like the new Kermit better than the Hulk.
Sure.
I think my major kind of flaw with the Hulk is that a lot of people, it just doesn't get a whole lot of wrist time because it's a very polarizing watch and it's not something that's very versatile. Mm-hmm. So the new one, I think, with just enough green, enough homage to the anniversary piece of the old Kermit, and it's really, really pretty. I am kind of one of those guys that would have preferred it to go to a 41 case, but keep the maxi case. Because I just a tad larger than the current, but I get why they slimmed it down, and I think some of the proportional changes make sense. I do like the wider bracelet. I just wish they would have kept for me personally, just my own selfish, I wish they would have kept the maxi case with the 41 millimeter, but.
Makes sense. But it fits nice. I mean, so like you have your 40, so which also, by the way, you're benefiting from a value jump. I mean, I think you paid like $5,000 for it, now it's worth 10.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah.
It's Bitcoin. Yeah, Rolex is Bitcoin, guys. I think those were great releases. The demand is out of control for those watches, and we saw. So let's touch on the result of those releases, right? So the discontinuation of the 40 subs, the Hulk, the sub date, and the no date, they all immediately skyrocketed in price. Mm-hmm. Then have come down, and then now people are looking for specific ones. So like if you have a 40 sub with the new green card, that's worth like thousands more than say like a 2010 or something along those lines. But now people are looking for certain specific models. So if you're getting the first year of 2010, you might have a little bump in value. If you have the last year, also people are looking for like new full set. So those are becoming collectible. It's kind of weird, Jason, that like now vintage, when I started in this industry and when you started, was like old watches, right? That was vintage. Now vintage is just discontinued watches.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if vintage is the right word, but I get what you're saying. Like the chase, right? Like that Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all style. Like
yes, Ash
I need a last month of production new unnamed card 114060, and it has to have stickers on the buckle. It's like it's starting to become so specific that it's like, I don't know where you're ever going to get, like, I'll call you maybe sometime in the future. I don't know.
Well, customers asking for that stuff, but some of that is driven by, the gray market dealers are looking for the newest ones because, like, that's easiest to flip. They don't have to do any work to it. So some of that is driven that way. But, there are customers out there looking for, to put these watches in the safe.
I think 2014 is the one that's worth the most. That's what people want.
Is that?
Yeah.
Suspiciously the one you
roll
have.
my phone number across. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. All right. So the new sub, the OPs, and then like kind of the most quiet release from Rolex, but I think maybe the coolest release besides like I guess the OPs is the new Sky Dwellers. They released Sky Dwellers on the Oyster Flex. So again, Rolex is putting the rubber strap on another precious metal watch. They have not released this strap configuration for a steel watch yet. So it seems like they're probably just going to keep that up, and it's kind of strange in my opinion. But maybe this is a way for them to kind of capture two markets. So you have a precious metal sport watch on the rubber strap is going to make it more wearable. Though we haven't seen many of these delivered. The prices are wild, right? It's about a $40,000 retail, right? And it sells for over that now.
Do you have a preference between the three?
I like it just because I'm like a maniac. I like the gold and gold. That's really? Gold and gold is what I like. If I'm gonna go gold, I'm gonna go gold.
I like the black just because of the way it looks with the strap.
Yeah, well, you have like a fascination with like the dark arts and things, so it makes sense.
I think I think this is a cool release. It makes sense. I don't know. I don't know if this has the buckle, the adjustment on it, like the 42 Oyster.
It has the sliding clasp. Yeah.
Okay, so that's definitely a huge upgrade because one of my favorite things. Also, I love that 42 Yachtmaster white gold.
Yeah, that's a good watch.
Love that watch. But it being the first adjustable buckle on Oyster Flex makes a lot of sense because they have those variable sizes. I do like I've never been a huge Skydweller movement fan personally.
It's amazing. It's the best movement
It's
they
a
make.
really cool movement. For me, it's not for me is all. But I like it. It's cool.
Why not, Jason?
But
It's
the
offensive
Oyster
to me.
Flex definitely makes that watch more wearable, which I like. I have
know.
no problem offending you, by the way.
Thanks, I appreciate that. So I don't know. I haven't really loved the Oyster Flex. I like it better on the 42 Yachtmaster. I like it. It's decent on this watch. Though I prefer. So I've had the Yachtmaster in steel with the black dial. I've had it a few times. That's the watch I missed kind of the most. I'm thinking about my next Rolex will probably be a two-tone Skydweller with the champagne dial, the gold dial. I think it's like 95% of the effect of the all gold, but
Sure.
in my budget. So that might be the next watch. I think I've said it many times. I think that the Skydweller is the best Rolex that's made for many different reasons, and you can get it in every different metal. But it's got the best movement. It's the most comfortable on my wrist, and it's kind of the most versatile, right? In my opinion. So I love that watch.
I can tell.
All right, we can end this now if you want.
Didn't you have a steel black?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mentioned that earlier. You weren't listening.
I often don't listen to you.
Thanks, bud. So I guess that's it for Rolex. I mean, in terms of watches that have gone bonkers in price, Daytonas have gone crazy as well. So right now, a white dial steel ceramic Daytona is like $30,000, which it looks like has pushed up all the precious metals as well. So the rose gold, which in 2019 rose golds were trading in like the low to mid 20s, full rose gold Daytona, say like black subs, right, rose face black subs. So that watch was trading in the low to mid 20s. Now those watches are over list. The list is $39,350. Those are trading in the mid 40s right now. So precious metal seems like it's coming back. Rolex is across the board. Some of it might be because they're not delivering as many, and some of it might be because people are looking at it against the steel. And it's like, well, listen, if I'm going to pay 30 grand for the steel, I can't be paying 35 for the gold. Like it needs to be more, and maybe that's what's pushing things up.
You know what, Omega, we didn't touch on?
What's that?
The all gold Speedmaster.
Oh yeah, they did
Rose
make
gold
that.
Speedmaster. Cool looking piece. So a special shout out to a customer of mine who's trying to sell his soul right now to get one. That's a cool release too. We talked about the steel pieces, but not that piece. There's also an all white gold piece that has a pretty cool panda dial, which would have been amazing in stainless steel, but they did it in white gold. The take on the rose gold, I guess, is going to be that it's boutique exclusive only. So I think
a lot of brands are doing that now.
Yeah, I think we'll see some value retention there for that piece. But
yeah, it seems like it. I mean, it looks like the entire retail Swiss watch world is going towards in-house sales, so more towards boutique pieces, eliminating dealers, which as an authorized dealer in Philadelphia is a little tough for us, but for the market in general and as a pre-owned seller, it's actually a good thing. When watches retain value, it's easier for everybody. Because margins are going to be margins from a dealer standpoint, but if somebody buys a watch and takes a smaller hit, they're going to be more apt to trade those watches, so there's more business anyways, right? Yeah. So I'd rather have somebody buy a watch and it retain more value, so when they sell it to me as a pre-owned piece, I can give them most, if not all of their money back. We can sell it to somebody else looking for a pre-owned piece. They can spend more money on another watch and it creates a cycle. Makes things easier as opposed to having things just sit because you take such a massive hit.
Less burnt bridges.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I had a guy who sold me a Longa the other day. He paid full list for a Longa, a Saxonia, really nice watch, and he paid like $33,000 for the watch. The watch trades in the low 20s. I think we ended up buying the watch in like the high teens. And he said, I'll sell the watch to you guys, but I'll never buy another Longa again. And I told him, well, let's take a step back. I say, don't abandon the brand. Just try not to, go spend full retail on a new one. Look for pre-owned. It's one of the best, if not the best values in watches today. I was talking to Mike Mandros about that.
Completely undervalued.
I mean, hugely undervalued. For the amount of finishing that you get in engineering in those watches, for the value on the pre-owned market, those are the best watches to buy. All right, so let's quickly hit a few others. So Richard Mille came out with a brand new flyback
pretty
It's an
watch.
RM72. It is a cool watch. I kind of like it better than the RM11s. It's $188,000 list price, and I think the only one that I've seen offered on like the market, I guess, was asking like $320,000. It's not really a place like a market that we play in too often. It's low volume trading, but they do all sell. So it's interesting. Cool watch, I guess. Is it worth 188 or 325? I guess if you're buying and selling it, maybe. But I probably wouldn't spend that kind of money, my own money, on those watches. But somebody who really can't afford it, doesn't really matter, right? And then another cool watch that came out this year, which I think is kind of putting this brand on the map, is the Green Streamliner from Moser. So this watch, Moser was a watch that we've a brand that we've had our eye on as a company for a few years. We're recently a authorized dealer for the brand. We love everything about it. Ed Milan is an amazing CEO for the company. The watches are great. We've been buying and trading those watches for a long time, and we feel like they've been undervalued, and finally people are starting to pay attention. It's kind of an FP Journe effect. People are looking for other independents that are going to pop the way FP Journe will. I will go ahead and say the Moser will not pop in that sense, because there's other things happening with FP Journe in terms of their retail prices probably being below what they should have been. That was a big thing. Mm-hmm. Also, very low numbers. Moser, while makes about 1,500 watches a year, Journe makes less than that. And also, from like a mass appeal standpoint, Journes are a little bit less polarizing than Mosers. Mosers, though, this piece, the Streamliner, if you bring it back up one more time, Sean. It's an amazing watch. On the wrist, it feels like a slightly better engineered 5711, in my opinion, like a more robust 5711.
Yeah, it's awesome. I put this on my wrist, and while the execution, the bracelet, everything about it is awesome, if you're not ready to wear like a watch that wears slightly smaller than 40 millimeters, or like just a tad, like wears like a 39, I guess then you'll be a little bit off put by the size. The watch wore smaller than I expected it to. And that's only, I guess, because my experience with the brand was mostly the Pioneer. Mm-hmm. And the Pioneer for me was always a little bit bigger than you would want. Very much like it wears like a Panerai,
yep.
Right? Like a 44 millimeter Panerai. And it's awesome. And actually want a Pioneer for myself. I think I'm going to go for that green dial Fume.
Yeah, that thing's sick. With the
that watch is awesome, and that is something that's on my hit list. The Streamliner is way over-engineered. The bracelet is crazy. Like, when you put it on your wrist, it feels like a piece of silk.
It feels great.
It's awesome. But it does wear a tad smaller than you might expect.
To 40.
Knowing the brand.
But it has some heft to it. I tried it on for the first time in person.
It's very cool, though. The dial is amazing.
The watch is great.
And it's got one of the coolest nicknames you could.
On the Green Dragon?
Yeah, people are calling it the Green Dragon.
So our buddy, awesome. the Journe Identity, got himself one from his authorized dealer out in Seattle, and I love that watch. I told him, when you're sick of it, then send it over to me and I'll wear it for a few weeks. I love that watch, and now I finally got it on the wrist, and it's just as good as I thought it was. Limited production, though it's not a limited edition, but it just, like, Moser's capability in producing these things is very low, and they don't want these watches to skyrocket in price. Milan was very specific about that. He goes, I don't want people waiting 3, 4, 5, 6 months for a watch that especially in this price point, but they're going to do their best to try to satiate the market. But they only make 1,500 watches a year.
Yeah, and their goal is not to increase production by 10 times.
No.
Their goal is like maybe max 2 times what they can do now in the next 5 years, which is a long time to ramp up like that.
Sure.
But they do a really good job of still making every watch feel very special and kind of one-off, even though they're not. And I think for pre-owns, one of the best perpetual calendars you can buy.
Yeah. It just looks like a time only.
For the money. Yeah, the movement is crazy.
Well, so I think Moser are starting to pop in price. Like, for example, the Pioneer Center Seconds. Last year I had a chance to buy one for $6,000. I wore it for a couple days, and I ultimately passed on it. Which I did the same thing with the Hulk in like 2015. I could have bought it for $5,000. But so now that watch is trading readily at $12,000 right at their retail. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking to kind of get in early on a true independent from a brand that really cares about its collectors, buying a Moser in the next year will be a good idea. I think it seems like it'll be a good investment, even though I don't invest in watches. Yeah. But it doesn't seem like it'd be a bad buy. I don't see anything terrible happening to the brand where things just
optimistically safe choice.
Right.
You know?
I mean, I sold, so the original Pioneer Center Seconds without the bezel in green was just discontinued. I sold one a week before to a customer of mine, and we're already seeing the prices go up, and he's happy with it. Not that he's going to sell it anytime soon. But again, it always feels good that when you put your money into a watch that, you're not losing it. Even if you love it and you have no plans on selling it, it just feels good to have something that's worth more than what you paid. So Moser, I think, was probably the biggest benefactor besides Journe of 2020 in terms of demand, right?
In terms of, so like the
Like
spotlight being put on the brand and
new
then
demand.
becoming, new to so many new eyes. Yeah. And actually one of the craziest things is the amount of people that have just started looking at them that transact is much higher than you see with like a lot of other independents. People, find Laurent Ferrier and think it's awesome, but the price point is obviously a different barrier to entry.
$40,000 base price point.
Is a different barrier to entry. Same thing like Journe, you've missed the boat. Like it's hard to buy Journe right now if you're just finding them, right? Because you can't.
Yeah, you got to spend $200,000 to get a nice one.
A lot of guys are finding the brand and really falling in love with it. The dials are all beautiful. The overall fit and finish, like you don't get a janky version of a Moser. They're all really, really
Well, the
clean.
sport watches are real easy to understand, and then once you have one of those, then it's not a hard leap to go to one of their more traditional pieces.
And we don't have a shot of that Streamliner case back, but that movement is absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, a hidden rotor, automatic hidden rotor.
Yeah, the rotor is just behind the dial. So the watch itself, if you don't know, looks like a manual wind watch, but it's super cool.
Cool. All right, so the last thing we want to talk about, guys, today, we want to first thank you guys for logging on. We have a decent turnout. I think there was like nearly 200 guys in the middle of the day on a last-minute show, so we appreciate that. I mean, that's more than what we used to get back in the day, but when we were doing these on a weekly basis. So thank you guys for logging on. I want you to let you know also, check out our podcast. This will probably be converted to the podcast, but we're going to be recording more and more podcasts. I'm going to try to make an effort to do a weekly Trading Desk podcast, whether it's just going to be me and Jason, or Jason and something along those lines, but have like a weekly release, audio only Trading Desk podcast. We're going to try to make that work. So check that out on iTunes or Spotify and whatnot. But so the last thing we want to address is I guess like the biggest news of 2021.
The big blue dial elephant in the room.
Yes, we're going to call that the big blue elephant from now on. So the discontinuation of the 5711. Right. So this is a watch that's kind of this and the Daytona were the catalyst for the explosion and kind of spotlight on the watch world. These watches just skyrocketing in price, huge auction results, whatnot. They discontinued the white dial. Was it last year or the year before they discontinued the white dial? So the year before. So 2 years ago they discontinued the white dial. The Journe Identity picked up one of those just before it was discontinued, and then benefited from the raise in value very shortly afterwards. So now they finally discontinued the blue dial version. So there's no more time-only Nautilus in steel currently. And so we saw overnight the watches go from like say $70,000 to $100 asking price at least.
Yeah.
We know actual transactions at around 90. I haven't seen any evidence of actual transactions in the hundreds. Not saying that hasn't happened, but I haven't seen the evidence of it. Dealers are easily paying $80,000 to $90,000 for these watches right now, trying to figure out where the market's going to end up. Your thoughts on this?
It's bananas, man. End of an era. It will definitely. We've gotten news since the speculation of why it shot up to $110,000 is because it was 5711's dead, right? Like it's never come back. There was no news.
There's people on the waiting list for years already.
Yeah, since then we've received news that they will do a farewell Nautilus. So we'll see what that ends up being. Maybe full titanium green dial. But that would be sick. Anyways, I think, obviously it's tough to say. Personally, don't really see it being a $70,000 watch as is, let alone a $100,000 watch. I think
there are many other really better $100,000 watches, right?
There's watches that I would rather. I get killed for this, but there's watches I'd rather spend $20,000 on. Honestly, it's a cool looking watch. It's obviously iconic. If you love it, great. I like it. I don't love it. I've always said,
it's a little too delicate.
Go back, track the trading desk. I've always liked the 5167 better.
Sure.
it's just been more of a me watch, and even then, I'm not buying a 50. I'm not buying that Aquanaut either. A lot of people have a problem with how delicate the movement can be. The case,
bracelet too.
It's essentially a very iconic sports watch that's not very sporty.
No.
So I think a lot of it was politics, and the reason why it was discontinued was because of what it was becoming. Don't think Patek liked that very much.
No, I've heard
they
rumors
decided
that
to
they
do
were
something
disgusted
about
with
it.
that, yeah.
So we'll see. I'm sure the new one will be gangbusters. You won't be able to get it. It'll be
6811 or something.
Yeah, it'll be crazy double retail at first, and then probably who knows if it'll triple, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think this was a good move. It takes a little bit of pressure off the brand itself, right? So the secondary market explodes, but again, now you can't get them new through retail. So what takes a lot of pressure off retailers. A new release, I don't know. I've heard that they don't really want to be known as a steel sport watch company. I know that that's the trends now, but I will say that the Calatravas and some of their complications, precious metal complications, have actually received the boost recently because those watches tended not to kind of hold as much value, right? They would have like a slight decline in value from their retail. Nothing tremendous, but they would be like selling under retail. But we've seen some of those watches inching up. People seeing more. There's more demand on their traditional watches, which I think is what they want. Again, the watches, the brand is not a steel sport watch company. It's not AP. It's not Rolex. Patek is a complicated dress watch company. That's what they are, and that's what they do. So I think that was kind of part of the motivation here is to kind of end the hype. But reeditioning another Nautilus. So one thing is, I was listening on Clubhouse, guys. By the way, Jason and I are both on Clubhouse. We're going to talk about maybe doing some live talks on that as well, just randomly, something that we might check out. So follow us on Clubhouse if you are. But I listened to Jean-Claude Biver was talking with, I think it was his son and then another character, and it was the biggest watch Clubhouse I've seen. There's like over 200 people in there, and he was talking about what Terry Stern was doing and the fact that the Nautilus was a watch that was created, but it was never created to like add complication. So he was comparing it to the Royal Oak and how the Royal Oak is a steel sport watch that it's very easy to add complications to, and the Nautilus was so tough. That's why you see like 5980s are super thick and they're not as well balanced. So they might, if they do release a new watch in this line, it'll be a watch that will have the ability to add complications. That's what Patek does much easier. So it makes sense to me at least.
Yeah, so I like more of a modular case. I think it makes more sense. I would love to see, so similar to the Steel Weekly calendar that came out, I would love to see them go steel watch, but some complication, and maybe 3 or 4 models so that you spread it out. So it's not just that one watch like the weekly calendar when it came out was like that one steel watch. If there's like 4 cool releases with 4 different complications in a steel piece that's not a Nautilus case, I think it would really set a precedent for the brand coming back as a complication brand, and also still being able to do a steel piece that's retail. At least we can't control what will happen in the secondary, but retail will be reasonable.
Cool. Yeah, I hope so. So, all right, guys, we have so many good questions in the chat box. So Jason and I are going to record probably today an audio podcast as well. So we'll try to talk at length with a few more of those topics about A. Lang and Son, which we didn't really touch on too much today. So we'll chat. We'll see if we can touch on that. And but I think
bring some of these questions in there.
Yeah, we'll bring some of those questions in there. I mean, we've been going for over an hour now, so I think the crew wants to get home. They're snowed in already. So, Jason, any last words?
Good to be back.
Yeah.
From the dead.
Okay. Well, we'll go back into the dead. So yeah, guys, check us out. You can see our cell numbers are on the screen there. Give us a phone call or a text message if you're interested in anything that you see on the Watchbox website, or if you just want to chat watches. You can also check us out on Instagram. I'm at Mr. Thanos, MrThanos. Jay has a normal handle now.
At Evo_watches.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, check us out on Clubhouse. I think you're on Facebook, right?
I am.
Okay, check out Jason on Facebook. You can check us out on YouTube here. This will be uploaded onto YouTube. We're on Grubhub, Friendster, DoorDash now. We're on DoorDash now. We're DoorDashing.